For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
So I feel like a little bit like a fish out of water here.
I don't know my donuts, Chris.
There's no Dunkin Donuts. We are in the Headingley's Taverners Club.
We don't do donuts.
And we're here with Matt and Rich from Steamforged Games.
Thanks for joining us in the pub here.
In the pub. We're in a pub. We're in England, ladies and gentlemen.
We've
got to be in a pub. And we are overlooking the cricket fields.
Yes.
Of Lee. What is the name of this complex?
This is Yorkshire Cricket Club.
Yorkshire Cricket Club.
Yeah, it's known as Headingley.
Okay, Headingley, which reminds me a lot of the lady who plays Queen Cersei in Game of Thrones.
Oh.
Her last name is Headley. I don't know.
Is it?
Doesn't matter. It's something. Anyway, so many months ago, in the warm of an Indianapolis afternoon,
Extreme warm.
Extreme
warm.
It was about 95 degrees.
Yeah, it gets hot.
Yeah.
So our friend Dave and I went out for a nice coffee with Rich and Matt, and we had a blast. It was absolutely one of the high points for me of the whole weekend. And one of the many conversational topics we covered while we were hanging out there, we actually kicked a couple people out, got ourselves a table under an awning, was the data-driven aspect of Steamforged Games. And I knew as the whole conversation was going on that Russ would have loved to listen to it. And it was fascinating. And so I was kind of hoping that we could talk today, or actually you could talk with Russ today, because then it'll bounce back and forth and be way over my head, about this aspect of Steamforged Games and how you guys use the data that you collect to sort of shape your not only the game, but the sort of the company vision and where you head and off into the future as things develop. So a little bit first, when you talk about data driving your decisions, what sort of things are you talking about?
So a lot of it comes from my background. Certainly before I quit my full-time job and worked full-time for Steamforged, was making those mobile video games. Mm-hmm. And these are the free-to-play, allegedly, micropayment games. And behind the scenes, there's an awful lot of science and data tracking that goes into those that I found fascinating, from a personal point of view. So what is the data that's being tracked? And how do they actually use that to make decisions? Now, I do think that those particular games take it to the extreme, to the point where they are creating deliberate pinch points and things like that to actually trigger payment in people. And there's all these numbers about what is the conversion rate, what is the average spend per user, and everything like that. So there's ways that we can use that data for us to make decisions. So we do look at what is our marketing spend? What is the new number of players that we have? So we actually know on average how much it costs us to acquire a new customer. Also, how many teams do people have on average? So that means that if we're selling someone a team, are they likely to go on and buy a second team? And using all that kind of information helps us really understand what our customers want. I think is the most important thing. It's not necessarily what we want as a company, but it tells us what the customer wants, and then we can then start applying our development strategies and product developments to satisfy those needs, and then we create a product that everyone wants to buy and play. So
right. How do you go about collecting the data? So video games have a huge advantage, of course, that everybody's playing something on a computer. It can collect what's going on there. How do you guys go about sort of starting to capture that data?
I think we have a few channels, don't we? So, recently we released a survey, and that was trying to get a big picture of decisions we're making in the company to make sure they're on track as well. And then the information from that survey was it hit our core demographics. We knew we were targeting the players we wanted to really insightful views on where we're going. Other ways we have it as well, like as Matt said, with the marketing team, we have a fantastic marketing team that will be able to break down through our Facebook advertising, things like that. So it gives us kind of a market-driven or sales-driven approach. Mm-hmm. Then we have the community side as well. So we know through our programs, we use Tiebreaker, one of our programs, to log events and tournaments, things like that. That gives us a huge amount of background data that we're collecting. So we know that, for instance, the win rate of the butchers versus fishermen is about 45 to 55% window. So we know that there's only a 5% flex either way through most teams in Guild Ball on the balance of these teams. So I think those 3 key points are the ones where we get most data.
We've also got a lot of financial data coming in. So our accounting team and our finance team work very hard to keep track of where all the pennies are, but also create data points for us to look at as well as a business. There was another thing, I've forgotten it now. I'll come back to me.
Okay, well, it's interesting. So, what have been some of the more surprising insights? I think it's a great. Obviously, had that sort of that tournament competitive play structure to really understand how the teams are doing and kind of figure out game balance. And what I'm imagining is you guys are cross correlating the data from tournament sales again or tournament play to finance and seeing what coordinates what matter. Yeah. Have there been any surprising insights that you're sort of like, ooh, that's a little different than I expected?
I think generally it was kind of tracking very similar to the sales. So we noticed that if Model X was getting used X amount of times, that actually was translating to the amount of purchase for that model. There was some anomalies. I think salt's probably the funniest one, isn't it?
Do me a favour with salt.
I was going to bring salt up to you.
So.
Well, now you've done it.
Yeah, I've done it. Here we go.
We could call it an echo chamber, we can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy, whatever it is, but there's this phenomenon that happens, and this is one of the things that, my answer to your question was going to be, the thing I found most surprising was the least winningest team, the Engineers, had a 45% win rate, and the most winningest team had a 55% win rate.
So it's only a 10-point.
Yeah,
right. So but when you talk to people in the internet, Engineers are trash. They never win anything. And morticians, oh my god, they're so OP. They win everything. It's actually much closer.
Greg helps with the morticians.
Yeah, I bring down stats on
He brings it right down.
I'm trying to help
those numbers down. But a similar thing that happens with Salt. So it's not that I hate Salt as a model. He's a cute sea otter and he's brilliant. I love playing with him in my fisherman team. But I work with the sculpting team and the art team to create these, what we try to be the most wonderful models that we can produce. And then when people kind of go, do you know what our best-selling model is? It's Salt. It's like, don't show people that. It's just a little sea otter. Show them the guy who's running with a spear.
True story. I'm at your store yesterday and at SteamCon here, and you've got those awesome little chibi pins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the very first one, the one that I went, oh my god, my daughter would love that, was of course the one with Salt.
There you go.
Because he's this cute, he's the ultimate little chibi seal. Yeah. I'm like, well, I have 2 daughters, so I need someone else who has
no facial hair.
None. But there was not another mascot that just had the look of Salt. Yeah. There's just something magic about that sculpt.
He's a cool dude, but here's the problem: is that what we've got then is retailers and distributors talking with our commercial team, and Byron saying, yeah, well, of course, our best-selling model is Salt. You better have 10 extra of that model. It goes like hotcakes. So now the sales for Salt are going through the roof.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. So he keeps saying, it's still our best-selling. No, really? You reckon?
Now, are you able to keep track of restock versus initial order? Because I know a lot of times when retailers open up, they get excited and they order 5 of everything and then it sits on the shelves. Do they kind of know what models are really selling? Because
we're working really hard with our sales team. The great thing with our company is that me and Matt made decisions early on to go in with 2 people, Greg Playle and Byron Ord. Greg and Byron deal with the finances and the retail side of our business, and we get to biz around.
That was the other thing I was going to say. So where we also get data from is we are lucky to be in business with Greg and Byron, who also own Element Games, which is one of the larger online retailers and brick and mortar store in the UK. So behind the scenes, we get access to retailer information as well. So, data is data. You have to understand the relative value of it. So we don't take our data and consider it hard and fast, but we do take relatives. So we can actually see how many units of Blood Bowl, Element Games have sold versus how many copies of Kickoff in the same time period. Mm-hmm. And it gives us an understanding of where we are relatively and what's currently popular and what's waning away. So that's another aspect that gives us a huge kind of, trend analysis as well. So
very cool. That's fantastic. I want to dive in on the Well, I just wanted to also mention, you mentioned the store thing. I think there's an advantage. Some of the other game companies have their own stores also have that retail data, which is very powerful bit of data. So I think it's awesome you guys have access to that.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference in what you're able to sell through the channel, if you will, and then what actually happens in the store.
What it's enabled us to lead into is we actually have bundles of products that we recommend to stores. So if you're quite a small store, you're just starting out, you only want to spend $200 or $300 on inventory, we can tell you the best models to pick up that will help the guys in your shop start the game, build the game, and hopefully a community will grow from that. If you're a bigger store, hey, here's the $500 bundle, here's the $1,000 bundle.
And you really want those sales to drive well, because then the store is going to think highly of you and then order again.
Correct. And our mission as a company really has to be to accelerate turnover for the retailer.
Right.
We don't want them to have their $300 tied up in product on the shelves. We want them to sell that, make their profit, pay their bills, keep the doors open, keep somewhere for people to go and play the game, and come back and reorder, and we just resupply it. So.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So I wanted to dive in more on the survey you mentioned, Rich. So you mentioned you guys did this survey. Tell me a little bit about what the things you wanted to discover. What prompted the survey, and what did you really want to learn?
So, we got back from China, and as we said, and we had all this buzzing information in our own heads, and it was like, how do we capture any kind of data or opinion from our players? Because we've got sales figures, we've got information on what teams people are playing, stuff like that, but we haven't actually got opinion on why they play Guild Ball, because that's the hard one to encapsulate. Why does someone do it? So we kind of formulated a survey. It's a very simple survey monkey kind of style thing, but we really thought quite a long time about the questions and the styles of questions and what to ask our audience, and we ended up with kind of like 8 or 10 questions, and some of them were specifically targeted to find out why people play it. And one of the big ones from it is that we got was like 77% found ranked number 1 and 2. Most important with Guild Ball is the gameplay, and that really, what that helps us do is really certify in our head that the decisions that me and Matt are coming to are the opinions of our fan base as well, which is so important to us.
So did that surprise you, or to kind of validate you?
Validation, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a habit of so part of my job that I enjoy really, way more than I ought to is being a student of our industry and our hobby. So looking at what everyone's doing and trying to piece things together and almost form my own kind of interpretation of what's happening and why it's happening. And then I'll come and sort of sit down with Rich, and it'll come out at random times. So we were at breakfast in Hong Kong, and I just went, I don't think everyone who plays our games is actually that interested in tournaments. And Rich is like, what? Where did this even come from?
I think the key as well is that when we both sit together and we'll have these spark moments that if we both tend to agree on something, like, what, this is actually right. It tends to be right, and there's a little bit of the intangible there. So
you kind of knew you were hoping.
We kind of knew the output before we did.
You had a hypothesis, and you wanted to kind of validate
exactly, and it's really important for us, because I think as Steamforged, I think that's one thing we've done really well since the start. Matt and me managed to get this picture, and every time the picture is matching where people are going, and it's quite a hard skill to nail down, but we're refining it over the years, and it just helps us make the products that people want, not just throwing stuff down people's necks. We're making stuff that they're gonna want as well. It starts tailoring that kind of futurist kind of area.
I think it's really important what you guys are doing, because I think there's so many, in my other life. You see this all the time where industry leaders think they know, but they never test their hypothesis.
Right.
And a lot of times people have good instincts and they're right, but a lot of times they don't. So what were some of the things? Well, did you test your hypothesis about the tournament? You said 77% of your, about 3/4 of your people play for the rules. They play for the gameplay style and the game style.
Yeah.
What about to be competitive? I mean, is there...
So in the survey as well, we asked that exact question about organised play, because we had a feeling that a lot of our fan base was moving towards more the community style, like we mentioned about Civil War, things like that. So I think it was about 65% said that winning was the least important thing for a tournament.
Wow.
And again, I think it was about 75% were saying that actually it's meeting new people, playing games, and sportsmanship was the most important aspect.
So they like organised play.
Yeah.
It just didn't have to be about winning in the prize. It's all about just going and having an event and being social.
That's the events you have here, where you get 1 point for winning and 3 points for losing.
There you go.
I love that.
But so what Rich is describing is obviously the data we get out of the process, but as you all know, the crafting of the survey is incredibly key. Yeah. So we had to make sure that if we are testing our own hypothesis, we're not actually asking leading questions to prove our own theories. So, we spent quite a bit of time in actually designing how the survey hung together. We'll ask a question from this angle, we'll ask another question from this angle, knowing that those two data points we can then look at, and then do they connect where we think they're going to.
That also captures everybody answering A.
Yeah. Right. And we did... I've done quite a lot of playtesting, obviously, with video game development, and some of the best playtesting surveys that we ended up, adopting and using were ones that didn't say, rate this thing from 1 to 5, because guess what everyone puts 4. Right. So it's more, out of this choice of 5 things, which is the thing you like the most? Yeah. Oh, now you've got to make a binary choice. Right. And we actually get more hard-edged data out of that. So the survey's been brilliant.
It's been brilliant. We're definitely going to do it again. This was our latest way of testing where we feel the market's going. Yeah. And I think it's brave for us to do that, because obviously then, but at the same time, it's very sensible for us to do that, because it's proven out. And if we get it wrong, if we all of a sudden found out that 90% of people are about winning in tournaments, then, then we're wrong. And we have to adapt as a company. And I think if we lost that part of our company, that we were not willing to adapt, then we become arrogant. And I think we're not the company we set out to be at that stage.
That's great. What was the most surprising insight you got? It sounds like most of your hypotheses were validated. Was there anything that you were like, were you surprised that most of your people didn't come to your events to win? Was that kind of an suspicion you knew too?
I think the amount of people for me was, like I said, it was about 60% said that just winning is not a thing, And when you read the forums and you get, like you said about the engineers, you get the overall sense that everyone is super hardcore tournament player sometimes. Yeah. And it just isn't the case. And I think that was, for me, that was the standout one that was such a difference. I had, me and Matt spoke at length, we did feel that the community was becoming the big thing, but you still have this kind of itch, there's some really rabid kind of fan towards the tournament side, so it was really interesting.
And on the flip side, the painting side as well, so everyone coos over great looking models, but actually to see how down on the scale that was in terms of relative importance.
56% I think said the models were the least important part of the game.
Really?
They just want to play the game. So, and this is just for Guild Ball. It might not be true for other games. Right. But, so that was very, very surprising that, it is all about just playing the game and seemingly meeting new people and catching up with old friends at events. Those are the most important things. But it was the lack of importance to people for actually winning and lack of importance to people in terms of the actual modelling and the painting and that side of things. So those are the two sort of stand out. Oh, okay. Yeah, surprised.
Nice. How did you pick your sample? Because I'd imagine if you just surveyed people in your forums, you'd get you'd probably get more of those folks who are maybe more competitive. Was it just people on your mailing list?
So, interestingly, we specifically targeted those people on the forums and the Facebook and our Guild Ball mailing list. We did not send it out to any of our Dark Souls fans. We didn't send it out to the general populace. We thought we need to target the hardcore, because these are the people that are going to be most affected by our changes and our movements. So that was the most bit, because then we had this information come back. Actually, there's probably more people on the forums that are not as vocal about reading that. And I think they're the people that actually come through on the survey.
Interesting. Very cool.
And so a lot of the data that you were talking about also came from the tournament, the recording software that you use. And what does that allow you? So we've talked about the sales and the overall direction. Yeah. What does that data allow you to do, within the game mechanics themselves?
So we constantly monitor the success rates of teams and where we can deep dive into which captains. Yeah. The next layer that we want to start building is actually understand team compositions, and that's where the inception moment kind of opens up underneath us, and we've still got a long way to go. But at the moment, that very top-down view enables us, in the design team to basically say, well, hey, we need to keep an eye on this win rate. This particular team, this particular captain seems to be, their win rate seems to be going up. Do we know why that is? So we go on the forums, we go on Facebook, we use our own, knowledge of the game and experience to kind of say, well, it looks like these two models together, that combination seems to be, very common, and maybe there's something there, and it just helps us focus in on areas where we may need to make a tweak to the game or to the models just to retain the balance, or maybe those models are behaving how we want them, and people have just worked out how to do it. And a really big example of that is going back to the engineers. We've always maintained from the beginning that the engineers are a strong team. You just got to play them the right way, and an awful lot of the way people instinctively played engineers was actually different from the way that we thought that they should be played or could be played to be quite strong. So for season 3, we've had to kind of say, well, do you know what? We're going to go with this.
Make it more intuitive for the players.
Make it more intuitive. Yeah, right. And there's a lovely picture that I send to the design team regularly, which is a picture of a photograph of a pathway going through a park. And the architect or the designer of the pathway has done this beautiful, orthogonal, wonderfully paved path. And it comes down and it goes off like this. And yet there's a track worn into the grass cutting the corner of the path. Uh-huh. And I love that because that's the perfect design. Yeah. That's the thing that, according to my textbook, perfect. Yeah. And every user's going, we're going this way. So we have to, so we use the data to also try and find what is the actual path people want to tread rather than the path that we think you should be on. So tiebreak is invaluable to us. And like I say, one of the things we want to do is start expanding the tiebreak functionality so we can start seeing, it's this team with these models versus this team with these models. So we can actually start seeing what is a butcher's win rate against fish, what is a butcher's win rate against morts, what is a butcher's win rate, and actually what is Ox's win rate against shark, against Corsair, against Obulus, and give us even more kind of granularity in terms of the information we're getting back.
I think it's really important as well as designers. We can't be too precious on what we're creating, because once we put our idea out there and the gamers are playing it's their game. Right. At that stage, and we have to respect that, and we have to work with them to help them, further that game and their enjoyment. Like that is our job. It's not for us to kind of.
The opposite is also true. Is we'll put stuff out with good intentions, and they'll go, ha ha. So it's like Gutter, for example. Original design for Gutter she's a repositioning tool. Mm. We didn't anticipate that everyone was just scything blow over and over, doing ridiculous amounts of damage. So, it's almost like we put scything blow in because it was a flavour thing. It turned out to be the main thing that everyone used her for.
Right.
So, she's a good example of, best laid plans not surviving first contact. Right. So, it's...
But we've built, from season 3 onwards especially, we've built now in systems, a lot of people know we do erratas and we do the new card decks per season, and, from season 3 we've managed to build in that kind of, easy upgrade from now on. So, we'll keep constant, and like Matt said, we'll use the data to help inform those changes and really keep a vibrant and flourishing meta, so an enjoyment level, really. Which is the important bit, it's the enjoyment level.
Right. I think it's really interesting that, as you say, for using the engineers as an example, that you had an idea in your head about how it was supposed to be played. They were playing it another way and it was breaking. And instead of just sort of stomping your feet and saying, no, that's not the way, you sort of just shift the whole, the team dynamic instead. It says a lot about where you're going. And like you said, you're serving the community rather than this is the game, like it or not, which seems to be not only a nice and kind way to play or to run the company, but a much more business oriented. As opposed to your average game people who might start a company and then go, no, this is my game.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of people in this industry that we've come across that feel like once they've created it that they know best.
The artist's vision, right?
Yeah, right. And I think
running more like a business.
Me and Matt are probably two of the most critical people of our products, and we are so happy. We are happy to be proven wrong, and we're happy to be proven, that we don't know anything, and actually this is what we should be doing.
We said it last night, so we had a little bit of a fireside Q&A in the bar, and I said it, and I've said it before. I genuinely, and I know Rich feels the same way, feel like we are now custodians of this game. We have a responsibility to be, the people who curate and look after this game. It's not our game, it's everyone's game now. We're just lucky enough to be the guys that get to listen and help steer the ship, as it were. So it's a pretty cool feeling. So we'll never do the maybe I might once or twice do the stand my feet. It's got to be this way, but it's a pretty cool feeling.
And it sounds like data is really all about how you can do that and how you can interface with your community.
We're humans as well, and what we think might not necessarily be the right thing to do, and you're always looking for some validation. Me sort of saying, "Hey, how did you get on with Dark Souls?" It's partly because you're my friends and I want to know if you had a good time, but it's also like the designery part is like, did I mess up? Was the game any good? Did you really enjoy it or not? I'm reading your body language. Are you just being nice to me or not? Or did you actually really enjoy it? So
we were yelling pretty good last night, so I think it was pretty.
There you go. So.
I felt like, because when I get passionate about a game, I get all crazy, and people are like, "Is this guy normal?" So that came out, which means you did a good job.
But the data tracking is also another form of validation for us. Are we on the right track? Are we doing good things? Yes, we are. So we can be 100% confident going forward that we are doing the right thing. So
that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day here to join us in the pub. It's a remarkably quiet pub, too.
It is a very quiet pub.
No tinkering of glasses or anything.
But it's still early.
It is
very early for a pub.
Is there too early to have beer in England? Is there a thing about that?
Not enough.
Yeah. It used to be 11 to 11.
Yeah.
And then they went to kind of 24 hours if you had the right license.
So there you
go. There's a like, for example, down near where I live, there's a fish market called Billingsgate Fish Market. So all the workers come out from working the market around about 5-6 o'clock in the morning. They're done for the day. So there's actually a brilliant pub there that does like sort of cooked food and beers at 5-6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Which is great because if you're out clubbing or pubbing at the night time on your way home,
you're still in dinner mode.
There, you're still in dinner mode. So
nice,
fantastic.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, guys. Look forward to spending the rest of the weekend with you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Great, thanks.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.